So today I'm going to talk about how I use debate in my critical thinking classroom. And just a little bit about the course. So I have two classes of second-year students that are in NUFS's plurilanguage program. So they are learning English and another language. And I teach Japanese department. So these are students that are looking to become like Japanese teachers or things like that. And in our course, we focus on the 4 language skills, but we also focus on critical thinking. And the materials that I use are original materials created by current and former NUFS lecturer, along with myself. One of my co-writers is here now, Niall, so thank you for coming. And the working title is Facing Changes, Learning English Through Critical Thinking. So first I want to just talk a little bit about the value of debate in classes. So I divide it between language skills, academic skills, and critical thinking. So of course, with language skills, it's great for strengthening your listening skills while also developing content-based language about the topic and improving your fluency. Academic skills, of course, is note-taking, working in a team, collaborating with peers, and research skills. And then from critical thinking skills, so we follow Bloom's taxonomy. So thinking from different points of view, analyzing new information, reevaluating your prior beliefs, and confronting any biases you may have. So I'm going to talk about things I did in 2 units in 2 separate semesters. And I might have a bit too much, so I'm going to kind of try to condense the first semester so I can get through everything. But for the first semester, students do something that I call an informal debate. So it's not a full-fledged debate with rebuttals and opening statements and things like that, but it's more of a discussion. And the reason I start with this is because it helps students get comfortable discussing, sharing opinions, and agreeing and disagreeing in English. So in that first unit, I start the course with an introduction to critical thinking, and we do something called moral dilemmas. And students will have different situations, such as you forgot your wallet and you don't have money to buy lunch. You're very hungry. You see someone on the same train as you drop 1,000 yen. So in partners, the students would have to talk about what they would do in this situation. Because, you know, they have to consider all aspects of the situation and maybe the effects of it. So do you take the money because you'll go hungry, or do you give it back to the person? Maybe that person, the 1,000 yen's all they have that day and they need it. So they have to kind of consider carefully from different sides. We also do some beginning debate skills, and I start with the agreeing and disagreeing with a focus on students sharing their reason. And I give them statement cards, which I'll show you. And then we also do paired discussion with textbook situations later on in that unit, where they have to kind of talk and reason and negotiate with each other. For example, you're going for dinner with your friends. You want to go to an Italian restaurant, but your friend wants to go to a French one. And they would take on that role and like not argue, but discuss and weigh the options together. So here are some statement cards that I made for the agreeing and disagreeing. And I keep it very simple because it is the first semester. So things like people rely too much on technology. I love going out to parties, things like that. This language is the language that we give to the students from the textbook that I'm co-writing. So again, we're focusing on agreeing, disagreeing, opinions, things like that. This is a sample from the textbook situations. So as I said, the dinner situation. Then there's other situations that, as you can see, number 4, there's more parts to it that they need to discuss, like negotiating like a raise for your job or things like that. So at the end of the unit is the discussion. So again, the informal debate that I call it. So the situations from our textbook. The textbook does have a theme of technology in this unit. So we do moving online. So students are put into groups of 5, and I do it randomly. And they're allowed to sign up for the role that they would like to take. And in class, they get a preparation day to gather information. And when I grade, they get a grade for the discussion and then a grade for the research. And I do give them a research paper, but I keep it simple because I don't want to overload them for their first like project of the class. So this is the situation from the textbook. So we have our fictional university, Jamie University. So the situation basically, to attract more students, the university wants to move all the classes online. So students will choose a role: a president, first-year student, a parent, a lecturer, and an international student. And then students have to think from the perspective of these roles. They can research information. They can also do interviews. The person that's the president, it's difficult. They're not going to be able to interview the university president. But the other roles, they can easily find someone to interview and get their perspective. So this is the research paper. So again, I keep it simple, just their facts, their opinions, and then questions they want to ask to each other. The rubric I use to grade, I also kind of keep it simple and easy to follow. So I'll grade on their presentation of their information, their expression of opinion, how they engage with their group members and their preparation. And I do collect the research paper to grade. So how I do this is that in the first part of class, I'll have students meet with each other that have the same role. So I have about 4 or 5 groups discussing at the same time. So like from each group, every person that is like first-year student role, before we start the discussion, they will come together, everyone with first student role, and they'll share information, and that helps them to kind of narrow their ideas down and maybe to get new information that they haven't thought of or found on their own. Then the second part of the class is when I have the debate happening. So I do have a big number of students in my class, so I have to have between 4 to 5 groups. And I'll be walking around the room and monitoring and, listening for, their reasoning and support and their participation. And the students will present by role one at a time in order. And then the third part of the class, I have Q&A time, which is for in the group, the students will do Q&A about with different roles, and they'll decide on a decision. Yes, we'll go online. No, we won't. And just so what the students who are listening are doing is I use this barometer chart. So as the students listen to the speaker, they will take notes of the pros and cons of going online that that speaker has mentioned. So for perspective, they'll write, the role. So president, first-year student, international student, pros and cons. And then they have a space to write questions that they want to ask for the Q&A part. And with the meter here, after they finish, they will fill in the extent that they agree with the person. So if they only agree a little, they will fill in maybe the first box. And if they agree a lot, then they'll fill in more. And this is good because it helps them kind of see visually how much they agree with each role's perspective. So just a summary about semester 1. They learn about the basics of debate by being presented, various points of information from different points of view. And that chart I showed you helps the students analyze and synthesize their information. And this can also challenge, their views or their opinions that they originally had. So with semester 2, this is the full debate, full style debate with opening statements and all of that. So by now, it's halfway through the second semester, and students are working on a unit about immigration. And at the end of this unit, then we'll end with a regular debate that will be part of their project grade. So I can easily divide the preparation and the debate into 4 classes. So the first class, we go over the terms of debate, opening statements, and refutations, and we use the textbook to practice that. The second class, we do a partner debate, where the topic is English should be taught in kindergarten. Then they have a research day and then a day for the full debate. Okay, so during the first class, again, we go over the terms, we go over the language, and I show them an example video of how to make refutation. So how we practice this in class this is from the textbook that I'm co-writing again. They choose one of these topics. They can also think of their own idea. And I have them rock, paper, scissors, and then the winner will agree, the loser will disagree. So, for example, McDonald's is a better restaurant than Moss Burger. Again, I keep it simple to ease them in. After they decide the roles, then I give them 1 minute to plan their argument, plan their opening speech. And after that, then they will each give their opening speech. So McDonald's is better because, the reason, and then opposite partner, Moss Burger is better because. Then for the refutation, we practice the format. So you said this, A, B, C, and this is wrong because, and then 1, 2, 3. And we do this a couple of times. And it's actually pretty interesting when they think of their own ideas. I get some really interesting ones like, oh, you said this celebrity is attractive, that's wrong because, and then they kind of go, oh, no, 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 this one's attractive, this one's attractive. So yeah, they come up with some interesting things. Class 2 is when we do full style practice with their partner. So English should be taught in kindergarten. So again, they rock, paper, scissors, and then loser, winner. Winner agrees, loser disagrees. So I tell them that they have some class time, maybe about 20 minutes or so, to find information to back up their reasoning. So they will have their positions, and they'll find the 3 reasons and then facts and statistics to support their reasons. And then after that, as they give their opening statement and their reasons, we do some note-taking where they'll be writing down what their partner says, and then they'll follow the format opposing side stated, this is wrong because. So here's just some example of student work. I'm sorry, it might be a little blurry. And then class 3, of course, is their research. So each student will have a role. There'll be students taking on the opening statement. There will be refutation roles, closing statement roles. And the questions, that's actually everyone in the group. My debate rubric, so I break it up. The research is actually shared between the group because everyone has their own roles gathering information and bringing it together. But the debate score is individual, depending on, how they do, how they explain, how they speak in the debate. So the situation for this unit, our proposition, should your country accept more immigrants? Because again, I do have a big class size, I have 4 teams. So there's actually 2 debates happening at once. And each team has between 5 or 6 students. And I set it up like this. So one section like this on each side of the classroom, and then I'll sit in the middle. And I find that it's very easy for a debate to become very confusing. So I like to keep everything organized. So I will have slides that will give, which side is speaking, and then the time limit. So I'll click the slides through when each part of the debate changes. But just my overview, we do the opening statements, then I give time for the team to prepare refutation together, then they'll refute, they'll prepare defense, they'll do Q&A, and then they'll give their closing speeches. So here is just some examples of students' work for the debate planning sheet. One thing, so for the refutation part, I know students sometimes in the beginning, they're a little confused because they say, how will we know what the other team has to say to us when they're planning during that 3rd class day? And I tell them that they need to think from the opposite team's point of view. And they have to think, okay, what might the other team argue against us? So they do possible arguments that might be brought up against them. And then during the actual debate time, when the opposite team is saying their points, they'll make the notes here. And then during the prep time, they'll have time to refute. All right, so I know I have a couple of minutes left, so I just want to show you some of the student feedback that I did. So I made a survey and I gave them different statements, and I had it in English and Japanese, but for the sake of easier readability, I just included the English in the presentation. But they had to strongly agree, they were neutral, they disagreed, or they strongly disagreed. So the first 2 was about how they viewed the small discussion in the 1st semester and how that helped them in the end of the seventh unit. So participating in small group discussions helped me feel more confident in expressing my opinions. So I got mostly agreeing. So you have agree and then the strongly agree. The small group discussion in the first semester were helpful for preparing me for the full debate. So I got very small percentage of disagree. Oh, and there were 38 respondents for this. I had a little neutral, but mostly it was positive. Critical thinking skills improved as a result of participating in the debate. Okay, so again, I did get a small disagree and some neutral. Practice of rebuttal helped me understand different viewpoints better. So I was actually very happy with this. I only got that small neutral sliver, but majority of the class agreed, which is what I was looking for and what I was hoping for. So I'm happy with that. I felt more prepared for the full debate after practicing the smaller debate topics. So again, the smaller debate topics were before that in Unit 7 when, you know, the McDonald's versus Mossberger one. Number 6, I learned to think from a different perspective through our debates. I also was very happy with this, mostly agreeing with just one neutral. Debate format helped me think more critically about issues. Hearing my classmates' arguments during the debate helped me better understand the issue. Again, mostly agree. And the last question, it helps see the importance of listening and responding to others. So again, I did not get any disagree, so I was happy with that. And I also asked some students to just give me some feedback and some comments. So I'll just quickly go over some now. Gain deep thinking skills by listening carefully to different viewpoints and thinking while comparing them. One student said it was difficult to express their opinions in English. And it was also difficult that they had to predict what kind of opinions the other party would express and do some research regarding their own opinions. But they learned that these things are very important in debates. I did have some students that said it was difficult because of their English skills. So I felt that my English skills were insufficient. It was a very difficult topic, and I do think they all did really well considering the subject matter. I also have some translation of the Japanese comments. Some I agree with is in this person's group, only certain people spoke more than others. So I understand that frustration, especially if there are 2 people assigned to the same role. Maybe one student will do most of the talking. I thought it would be easier to debate if the English ability of the class was the same to some extent. Yes, I agree with that. Unfortunately, the university doesn't divide classes by ability level. So unfortunately, I couldn't help that, but okay, and just my own impressions. So the positives, I thought that huddle time for the preparation in the middle of the debate works well because I can tell how much the students are listening and, you know, you just see them all get together to share their information so they can prove their point. I think it's good students can ask the opposing sides clarification on what they mean without the teacher intervening. The time allotment and the cues kept it very organized, and I found that a lot of discussion happens in defense portion. But some negatives. Every year I do this, it takes longer than expected, and we have to rush at the end. I also noticed that since I have two groups running at the same time, if one group finishes earlier, they have to wait silently while the second group finishes. So that's a little awkward. And sometimes discussion might only happen during defense portion, and I did have one group that they didn't discuss much in Q&A. So, yeah, so I think that's just about time. Here are my sources. And thank you again for listening.
Thank you very much, Brianna, for that excellent presentation. Don't know if we have time for a Q&A, but if anyone has a question, please turn off your mic and ask it as soon as possible. Or you can type a question in the chat if you want to.
Yeah, sorry, I was running out of time there.
Thank you very much, Brianna. And I guess everyone's going to head over to the main room for the main speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Brianna. Yep, so everyone, please go to the main room. The second plenary is going to begin. Achieving mutual understanding across languages and cultures using the TRIPS framework as a guide. Helen Spencer Odie. Okay, thank you so much. And we'll be back in this room starting at 5:20.
Okay, Cam, I'm going to leave this room now. If the
Yep,
video,
thank you so much, and I'll shut it down.
yeah, if the video for Brianna ends up on my computer, then I'll upload it later.
Yeah, actually, I think Brianna doesn't want a recording. Is that correct?
I think I asked her yesterday and she said it was okay. So
Oh,
Oh
was
yeah,
it
that
okay?
was okay. Yeah.
Must have misread it. Sorry about that, Brianna.
No,
well,
that's okay.
if it ends up on my computer, I'll just upload it to the drive a bit later. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.